Portage County Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded August 17, 2021.
It's 5 o'clock. We'll call the Portage County Board to order. First item I'd like to just let everybody know before we get any further is that we have folks here from our IT department to help us today, as well as the civic clerk to try and help us with issues or be aware of them. So we are going to continue to try and use this system and move forward and work the bugs out. So I ask everybody to just please be patient so as we work through this. So thank you. Pledge to the flag. I'm sorry, got me out of order. Roll call. That's all right. That's part of our wellness, up and down the exercising today.
So everybody on civic clerk can mark themselves as present and voting, and then hit save if you have not done so already. As far as attendance, we have 16 supervisors attending in person, 6 attending remotely, and we have 3 excused supervisors: Neville, Ande, and Morrow.
Neville is actually present.
What?
And Morrow's closed.
Oh, they came on. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
Very good.
Love technology.
Oh, yeah, there's Mildred.
Oh.
Are you ready? Now the pledge for the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Supervisor Moresi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you all want to sit down, you can. I have to sit down so everyone can hear me and I can use this microphone. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla, for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Microphone. Oh, you do have it. Okay.
It's still on, yeah. Well, I can pop this down. As I reflect upon my time on the county board, I am flooded with the mostly good work that we have accomplished. I know that it's only been about 5 years since my tenure has begun, a blink of eye to some of you who I consider to be my mentors. But for the first 3 years, I can honestly say it has been some of the greatest learning I have done in my life. Understanding the systems in place, the culture of the board, the community demands, the bureaucracy that keeps us in check can seem very daunting at first. That is, until you realize that it's all just relationships. It's relationship building, relationships with our community, relationship maintenance, relationship mending. It's all just relationships. The last year and a half has been full of tumult and bellicose and misinformation and the general distrust of anybody who dares to disagree. To say the least, to be elected on this board, or any board in the 21st century for that matter, has been a political quagmire hardly worth wading through. Getting multiple death threats and trying to have a meaningful conversation is not anything any of us should have to do or endure or ever have to explain to our families, but I digress. It's really as simple as this. The more we choose to work together, the more we can accomplish. The more we fight and accuse and distract, the more we will fall behind and continue to spin our wheels. The more we seek solutions, the more we can provide for our constituents and for businesses that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. The more we accuse and point fingers, the more we will add to the toxic cultural narrative about the other or about them or those people. And that is when the mortar that holds the house together begins to spalt, crack, and fall apart. But if we trust each other's intention and ability, the easier it will be to lift ourselves and each other up. When folks try to divide, those of us who are trying to build and maintain relationships have to tighten up our tool belts or grab our shovels and hoes and head out and repair what some are so eagerly trying to destroy, our relationships. Our relationships to each other on this board, our relationships to our constituents, our relationships to our neighbors and to our families and friends, and even to those who do not agree with us or that we do not agree with. This board is here to make tough and sometimes very unpopular decisions that will advocate for the general well-being and equity of our community. What we are not here to do is take a political stance. We are not here to posture. We are not here to placate to some partisan agenda. We are here to be visionary and lead with reason, powered by sound facts. We are here to build and maintain relationships with each other and with our community. A person who embodies these sentiments is not here with us tonight. Supervisor Anton Ande lies at home with all of us on his mind and in his heart. Excuse me. And we all wish him a very speedy recovery. Anton leads with virtue. When he shows up for meetings, he comes prepared, intellectually and emotionally prepared, and not only with an open mind, but most of all with an open heart. A heart so big that even if you disagree with him, at the end of the day, he will still come up to you, shake your hand, and treat you with the most fundamental human decency and respect that we all deserve. A student of history and an immigrant in chase of the American dream, he comes with a perspective and experience that we can all benefit from if we truly listen to what he had to say with his genial comments and conversational persuasion. If we could all be a little more like Anton, our board could be just that much better at making the tough decisions that face us today and into the future with a little bit of grace. Today and every day on this board, we will face tough decisions, demanding constituents, and more fires will need to be put out. If we choose to handle them with logic and facts and grace and respect, keeping relationships top of mind, we can only be successful. Thank you.
Review and approval of the minutes of July 20, 2021. Motion by Dubek, second by Pataki. Any corrections or changes? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Correspondence.
County Board Chair, upcoming County Board meeting dates and information. And I just want to take the opportunity to let you all know that there will be a special joint meeting between the HR Committee and Exec Ops Committee on Thursday, August 26th at 5 p.m. That will be in Annex 1 and 2, and they will be discussing County Board compensation. So we just wanted to let you guys all know that that will be on the agenda, and hopefully you guys can all make it. So thank you.
Presentations. Number 4, Director Hauser, UW-Madison Extension, Portage County 2020 Annual Report. Mr. Hauser. I think it's...
Good evening.
Yep.
Is this on?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Haga and members of the Portage County Board. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. For those that I don't know personally, I'm Jason Hauser. I serve as the Area Director for your University of Wisconsin Extension, Cooperative Extension team here. So instead of bringing all the educators up here, they kind of send me in their stead. So I serve as the Area Director. I oversee the office here in Portage County, but also the offices in Marathon, Clark, and Wood County. So I'm going to briefly go through our annual report. The entire report is in your packet. I know that there's another annual report after this, so I'll try and be brief with my comments to keep you on track this evening. So as you look through the report, there's a couple of things that I want to make sure I highlight, and I think Kayla was able to pull that up, so we'll kind of walk through that. So in Portage County, we currently have 4 full-time educators, ag, 4-H, human development, and community development. I'll walk briefly through each of those areas. We also have a FoodWise program, which I'll touch on. It's a federally funded program that comes down. Our office is overseen by the Ag and Extension Committee, so Supervisor Jakowski, Supervisor Martinson, Gussel, Barry Jakowski, Anton, and I think that is it. So because of their leadership, we're able to keep things going to serve the constituents of Portage County. So a couple of things. Ag is huge in Portage County, as you know. Ken Schrader is our ag educator. He does a phenomenal job. He's well respected both in the region and throughout the state for his work in agriculture. And a couple of things that in 2020, you know, we did our due diligence to make sure that we're highlighting what truly happened in 2020. You know, I was very adamant with the team that we don't focus on everything because of COVID, but man, we did a lot of things in 2020 that kept the things moving in our agriculture areas and our youth development programming. And one of the things that is really important is not 2020 alone, but prior to that, farmers in stress, farmers in crisis, local farms that are going out of business. How are we supporting those individuals as they transition out of farming? How do we support farm families? How do we maintain their balance sheets in very slim profit margins? How do we exemplify good production practices to protect our natural resources? And the limited supply of good groundwater in central Wisconsin. Portage County is not alone. Wood County is also facing this dilemma of how do you change or adjust. I'll just say adjust because you're not going to change, but you're going to adjust your practices in agriculture to make sure that the rest of our natural resources, we're going to being good stewards of those resources as we move forward. So Ken does a lot in that, especially working with farmer-led producer groups. So the Farmers of Mill Creek, Farmers for Tomorrow, does a lot of field days and demonstrations, bringing in industry practices, adaptations that farmers actually are finding not just good from a sustainability practice, but also financially. So I guess kudos to Ken for his work on that. He's also one of the leading researchers in the state in cooperative extension when it comes to nitrogen application and when it comes to corn and hops. So an emerging, field or a product in Wisconsin is our hops. And so he is one of, I think, two for sure. I think there's a third one that added of hop demonstration sites and field research on how to bring that back to Wisconsin. You go back in history, hops were grown all over Wisconsin, and they kind of fell to the wayside, and now we're bringing it back. People produces ours. So Ken is doing a lot of research in that area, and it's a direct application to farmers here in Portage County. And then lastly, in that field in 2020, Ken did a lot of work with wild parsnip, working with the highway department, working with other departments here in Portage County to really get a handle on wild parsnip. And I know over the last 3 to 5 years, that's been a huge need in Portage County with the weed commissioner, John Aaron, and working on wild parsnip. That is a very dangerous, invasive species and can cause a lot of health impacts for those that come in contact with it if it's not taken care of. And so how do you mitigate that is some of the strategies that he's working on with other partners too in agriculture. So just some of the highlights for Ken. We get into community development. I think some of you on this board know Nathan Sandwick really well. He gets around and that's his job, right, to make sure that he's here to help and support you. So a couple of things. I mentioned groundwater. There's a group of 7 counties in central Wisconsin, Portage County being one of those, the Central Sands Groundwater Collaborative. So Nathan spent a lot of 2020 helping that group find their foundation, get off the ground, and it's a group of health departments, of county board supervisors, extension personnel, and state extension staff to really tackle this on a regional level, the groundwater issue. And one of the things that I'm happy to report, because of the support of this body, there was a Citizens Groundwater, Jim McNally's group had a meeting back in June, and one of our state extension specialists, John Exo, was up and presented with Doug Reineman. Long short to say, there's a new program in extension statewide, the Agriculture Water Quality Program, that has just kicked off last week, and it's a product of you investing your time and resources here in Portage County and your resolutions that you've passed at previous meetings to help Extension in Madison adjust some of our practices, and we've listened to that and we're making that adjustment. So there's a direct impact back to Portage County. So thank you for supporting, helping to move that forward as we go forward. But Nathan spent a lot of time. His role as community development is to get groups energized, engaged, planning, and he helped get this group off the ground with Nancy Turk in the Wood County office, and now they've hit their stride. They're working on grants, getting extramural funding to support their efforts, and that's thanks in part to Nathan's work. Community vitality and placemaking, this is an economic development piece that Nathan's been working on for some time. There's 2 different schools of thought, and I don't begin to be an economist here, but there's a lot of research about the emerging fields of individuals that will move to a place and then find a job. They don't go to a place to get a job. They move somewhere because they like the place, they like the parks, they like the school system, they like the infrastructure, and then they're like, well, then I find a job when I move there. Versus in the past, there was a lot of like, I'm going to find a job and then I'm going to move to that community. And so it's really shifting. The younger generations are especially in the light of telecommuting and remote work, he will just move to a city and then their job is based, 3 counties away or 3 states away for that matter. So how do we work with our business councils? How do we work with our municipalities to develop Portage County into a place where people want to be, to live, to grow, and raise a family? So he's done a lot of work in that area in 2020 in light of some of the changing dynamics of income, job creation, those sort of things. So if you want to know more about that, connect with Nathan and his work in that arena. And then I think briefly mentioned the Stevens Point downtown trades analysis. He does a lot of research on bringing state specialists in to do these analyses. People call him all the time to say, hey, can you do an analysis of this or X, Y, Z? I know one of the things that in the past at our oversight committee at Ag and Extension was TIF and TID districts and research on that and the economic impact of those over time. So he's done an amazing work. I know at times working with Supervisor Johnson on the healthcare center at one time. So he's very involved in our community. Human development relationships, kind of fast tracking this. Rent Ready is probably the biggest one that you as a board have been aware of. So Sherry Daniels, our educator in the office, works integrated with this program. She does a one-on-one counseling and sessions with those that are in this program, helping them kind of matriculate through at certain intervals. There's a lot of media last year regarding this program in light of job losses and people that are transitioning out of different housing. So a huge, again, thank you to Portage County for your investment in that program. And Sherry Daniels is highly involved with the Rent Ready program. The Strong Bodies program is probably the other largest program in this area. There are remote sites throughout Portage County. There has been. Right now it's kind of transitioning back from virtual to in-person. And this is a partnership we have with the ADRC in other towns throughout Portage County. It used to be called Strong Women, but we know that as people age, it doesn't matter if you're a male or female, any sort of physical engagement is instrumental to mental health, just mobility, and that sort of thing. So that has been a huge program. It's a statewide program that has a huge foothold here in Portage County. And financial wellness of Portage County, this is something where Sherry works with financial coaches, do individual financial coaching to those that need it. Sometimes seeing a financial counselor can really be a stigma for some folks, but this breaks down those barriers so that we can work with them, get them on track, and then refer them out to other people as we go forward. FoodWise is our federally funded program. It is the SNAP Ed dollars that come down from the federal government to be administered on the state level, and that state contract is with Extension through Human Services, DHS. And so this is federal dollars that are it doesn't cost Portage County anything. We have 2 full-time staff members here, Kelly Hammond and Penny Schmidt, and it's a very limited scope. It's those that receive food share dollars, a percentage of that, and in 2020 that increased over 30%. So they were busy, and it looked a little different because of one-on-one interaction, face-to-face interaction, but this is something that is spilling over into 2021, and their workload is I guess as high as it's ever been because of those that meet the threshold for their services. Pop-up produce gardens, this is something where we're looking at getting local food into the hands of everybody. So there's Kelly worked with local coalitions to create these pup kits, and it's basically a garden in a bag. You take it contains the soils, the seeds, all the different tools you need. Grant dollars came in and flooded that last year, and I think they administered over 70. I don't know what's in the report again. I think there's up to 70 different kits here in Portage County and other places too. So maybe that number is a little off in the report, but very, very impactful in 2020. And then virtual lessons. School districts were not allowing our staff in, but they said, hey, if you get us the materials, we'll be glad to show it during a prep time. And so they worked diligently on getting virtual lessons in. YouTube, social media accounts. That way teachers could play that during their prep time to really get those nutrition lessons in the schools as they need it. And then youth development, I guess the biggest one that you may be aware of is our 4-H program. It's a statewide program, it's a federal program, and has a strong following here in Portage County. But again, we had to cancel our in-person camps. We made that choice early on. So Connie Crichton, who's our educator there, worked on distributing just say camp in a bag, camp materials, to how to do it in your backyard, how to do it at a friend's house, and do it in a safe, supportive environment throughout 2020. And that actually was replicated many times over throughout the state. So a huge pat on the back for Connie. It's still an active program, over 300 members, 13 community clubs, and that number is actually down. But we're not alone. All youth organizations have notated that membership in programs last year was down. Even our comparable FFA programs throughout the state was down about 30%. 4-H statewide was about the same, 30% statewide. Here in Portage County, we're down about 20%. But again, 21 is a different year. Our numbers are back up to where they were prior to. Still down a little bit, but back there. And then community service projects. There was an ample opportunity for our young people to be involved in their communities with a variety of service projects. And one of the pictures that's up there is blankets. They procured materials, took the time, made some blankets, gave it out at various places throughout the community, that those that were in need, different shelters, and just disseminated what they could, how they could. So that included meals, the blankets there. There was a mask drive to get those to healthcare workers early on last year. A lot of different community service projects that we're engaged in. So I've went through briefly and fast, I hope, of our local educators, but I wanted to remind you as a board, you don't just get your local educators, you get state specialists that come up on a consistent basis and help out here in Portage County. So I mentioned John Exo. There are other specialists that come up. You don't get your local educators, you get the network. So you're investing in a statewide resource. And one of those things that we're talking about, actually, Executive Holman and I met with Nathan Sandwick on a project. And I said, we may not have it right here, but let me make some phone calls. And sure enough, there's people at the ready to come up and help Portage County because of your investment in your local educators. That brings the network in. Funding. How is our office funded? That's always the age-old question, right? We get into budget time and how are things funded? So our entire budget for the local office last year was roughly about $700,000. Okay. What was the county's portion of that? Around $291,000. So it is pretty much a 60-40 split. 60 by the state, 40% by the county. If you take out the food-wise, so the state contributes to the food-wise, we try and stick to the 50-50 split. So what does that split mean? It's instead of paying the full salary and fringes for a state or an educator, you pay about half. So it's a good return on investment. I feel, again, I'm biased because I support the office here, but I truly, as I go county to county, say that's a great deal. I'm getting a full-time educator and I'm paying half or less to get the full benefit. So it's about a 60-40 split, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There are small adjustments in the state contract, inevitably with HR. And I think Laura would attest to this, that you get your 1% or 2% cost of living increases, and we'll have that as time goes on with our contract, but nothing that's a deal breaker. There is a $10,000 discount, and you see as the contract comes through your packet towards the end of this year, inevitably you get questions on, okay, there's $10,000 discount, is that ever going to go away? Is the state ever going to pull those dollars back and not apply it to the contract? I'm here to say that that's not going away. I've been given instructions by our dean's office. That's kind of proverbial set in stone, that as long as you keep the office open here, you get a flat $10,000 off the contracted fees. So I think that's a plus that I'm always apprehensive to say because I don't know where it's going to go, but I've been given the quote unquote green light to say that's locked in. So with that said, we couldn't do what we do without volunteers. We have our Master Gardener volunteers, we have our 4-H volunteers. And I'd be remiss to say that, it's hard for us to do what we do without those volunteers. And what is that return on investment? As I go through what is the value of a volunteer dollar, and I think it's listed up there as $28.5. conservatively, our volunteers give about 5 hours a week. And I think that's even conservative as you get into, especially 4-H volunteers, fair time, summer programming. Our Master Gardener volunteers in the summertime, they put in 10, 15 hours a week with what they do. So I would say conservatively, it's nearly $250,000 that's reinvested from volunteering through, that's leveraged by our office back into the Portage County community. That is where you all live, where you all reside and partake. So I can't thank our volunteers enough. They truly are the backbone of what we do. With only 4 staff members, it's hard to do all the things that we do in a calendar year if it wasn't for our volunteers. So with that, thank you so much for your time this evening. I do appreciate it as always. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me or any one of our educators. They'd be happy to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless there's any questions from you.
Anybody have any questions right now? Got them here. Anybody at home have any questions? Dan Martinson.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just want to point out, just the work that extension does is really flies under the radar. I think we all owe them a debt of gratitude for the work that they do. It's kind of, they're sort of unseen unless they're needed. And the work that they do really is quite remarkable. So thank you, Jason, and to your entire team.
Thank you, Supervisor Martinson.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any comments or questions?
Chair Haga.
Go ahead, Barry.
I'd just like to say how proud I am of our whole Ag and Extension team here in Portage County. And just to reiterate about what Supervisor Martinson said, the work that they do is behind the scenes, but those of us that are on the steering committee are reported to each and everything that they do on a monthly basis. And I just want to say how pleased I am as to the leadership of Jason and each and every team member here in Portage County from the University Extension.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one thing.
Go ahead, Jason.
To Supervisor Schabilski's comment, yeah, so our educators do a monthly report too. So if you go in the meeting minutes, there's a log of everything they've been working on that month. So if you ever wonder any one month what's happening in our office, you can check that out at any time. We believe in open and clear communication and impact that we're making.
Okay. Anybody else? That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5. Director Schabilski, Health and Human Services, 2019-2020 Annual Report.
Well, this is a switch. I'm not up here like I usually was for all those months, but this is our 2019-2020 annual report. The reason is because we just got busy and did not get a 2019 report out. And that's just, there's just no other way around it. So this is a rather comprehensive 2-year report. I was reminded or thinking about as I walked up here when former Chair Eidsvoog, I would walk up and he'd say, "Ray, you got 3 minutes." Okay, well, that's
Ray,
what I'll
you
try
got
to
3
use.
minutes.
Thank you. That's what I'll try to use. Anyway, obviously 2020 was a real difficult year for all of us. We were impacted in a variety of different ways. What I want you to know, though, is that your Health and Human Services Department, we were there. We didn't stop. We changed. Some of our programs we had to do by telehealth. Some of our programs we had to change a little bit. But some of our programs we couldn't. We never stopped going out to protect children. We never stopped going out to protect elders. And we obviously never stopped our public health response. So we were there, very proud of the staff, proud of the work they put in. Also very thankful to all of you, and specifically the members of the Health and Human Services Board, who have given us great support over the year, over a rather difficult year, as I said, for all of us. This is long. This is rather comprehensive, so I'll start on page 2. I'm just kidding. If you have questions, please get a hold of me. I would be happy to have you come down and meet with you and go over anything. We're, like I said, we're pretty big, we're pretty diverse. We do a lot of different things, but we're here to serve the citizens of Portage County that need us, to work in collaboration with other county departments. And again, I would hope that you're proud of this department because I think they do a lot of great work. So any questions I can answer for you tonight?
Anybody have any questions for Ray? Anybody at home? You did in less than 3, Ray. Thank you. Number 6, Space and Properties, Chair Jankowski, Law Enforcement Center Tour Report and upcoming buildings tour.
The Space and Properties Committee felt that we should probably have a question and answer on the tour. You have in your packet some information here as to what we saw when we toured the jail. But basically what I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an idea. The building was built in 1992, opened in 92. That's 30 years ago they were building that building. They built it to a 10-pound size bag. And we have now expanded all the stuff in there to a 20-size pound bag. We have no room in that building any longer. That goes for the jail, it goes for the administrative offices, and everything. There's a small basement underneath the south half of the building, which is used for storage. County clerk, the various departments have records that have to be stored for years. They're down in that basement. There's rooms that are built for them to store. Very limited. We also have day reporting down there. And in order to get to day reporting, if you're handicapped or you're in a wheelchair, you have to use a service elevator, go down, and somebody has to come over from day report to get you into the offices. It's not really connected very easily. But basically the building is designed for a number of people that we had in 92, but it's staffed right now with the number of people that we have in 2021. It's very tight in there. Just some of the things that we saw, the medical examiner. Back in 92, we had a part-time medical examiner who may have come into the office once a month. Now we have a medical examiner with several supportive staff that come in there on a daily basis. The medical examiner is a full-time staffing position right now. And he's in a small room that would probably be about half the size of this juror's box. He has no place to visit with the people that might be coming in to have a question about their loved one's death. So it's very outdated and it's very congested. They've done a lot of work to update the building. They've done some work on the evidence storage. And it's surprising how evidence storage has evaluated over the years. Basically, you would take something in. When I came into law enforcement in 1968, you'd put something in an envelope and you may not see it till you went to court again. Now, there's somebody that takes care of all this and they stack it and they keep it, they record it, they know who was in to see that piece of evidence. It's all on record. We couldn't even get into that room because that's against the state evidence rules. So we could just walk up to the door and look in. That room was just recently remodeled. We've also added dispatch, and that's now a central dispatch. The county and city dispatch units were joined together, and they're in a room that was not designed as a dispatch center. It's very congested. So if there's 4 or 5 people working in there, and say we have a major incident, somebody's sending an ambulance out, somebody's sending a fire truck out, all these people are working, and it's very distracting because they're right in that one small area. We need to reevaluate how we're doing that. Emergency management was with the sheriff's department. Now they're in the annex building across the street because there's no room for them there. We have a generator in that building that is not functioning properly, and it has to function properly. We got people residing in that building 24/7. We have to have power should the power go down. And that generator is scheduled for a revamp, which could be a very expensive revamp, maybe even a whole new generator. When we toured through there, we talked about with the garage area. The building was built at a certain level. They didn't think about how you were going to enter into the back of the building, which is on the west side where the vehicles enter. Right now, certain vehicles can't make it up into the garage because of the steep incline that they have to approach to get to the building. So it's very hard for some of the vehicles. Some of the sheriff's vehicles are stored down at the at the highway department because they can't be stored here. There's no place to keep them. In the winter, we have the snowmobiles. In the summer, we have the boats. And sometimes you have to have both at the same time, and it gets to be very congested in that garage. So, and we went into the jail. The jail was originally built so that we could house 2 people in each cell. Well, we found out that we couldn't do that, so we're housing 1 person in that cell. It is a linear jail. What does that mean? It means that we have a hallway, that our security and our officers are walking down this hallway, and people are stationed off in their cells on the sides. Very difficult to maintain, very difficult to observe what's happening. Now they do a pod system where there's a jailer and maybe 2 people sitting in the middle of this pod, and they've got cells all the way around them that they can watch. So we are very outdated and very antiquated in that area. Our Sallyport, we can't bring an ambulance into the Sallyport again because of the design of the ramp. If you bring that ambulance in there, we'd probably have to get a wrecker to tow it off of that pivot point. So it's very bad. We have an estimated cost of $27 million, and those were at 2018 costs. You can rest assured that those costs are up to redo that building. If we rebuild that building, it would be a 3 to 5 year project, and we would have to move certain people out at certain times. We wouldn't get all our things in that footprint. We'd have to add to the footprint, and that might not be very cost effective and very efficient to add to the footprint. We would have to move the garage to a different location because that would become part of a jail cell, a block. So it's just not very conducive to remodeling. So we need to do some things. Now, I've got the report here, which is 4 pages of what we saw and what we did that day. If you have questions, the sheriff is here and I'm here, we can answer those questions. Any questions that anybody might have on the building as it stands today?
Supervisor Laddick.
I have one question.
Speak into the mic, please.
Earlier, and if I recall right, there was only like 1 drain in one of the cells. Like all the cells did not have their own drain for like
Correct.
Washing it out.
Correct. If somebody does make a mess in the cell, it's very difficult. Maybe 1 other 2 of the cells in the block might have a drain. The rest of them don't. These were not designed properly back in 91, 92. We don't have medical beds. Now we need medical beds. We need an area for our nursing staff. So yeah, there's some deficiencies, yes. Mike.
That was my second tour of the jail. I was hoping we'd have more supervisors join us. We had 1 supervisor other than our space and properties, but that's fine. But if you've never actually been through that whole area, you just can't appreciate how this. Just my personal point of view is I worked 30 years for Century, and we had A+ conditions wherever I worked. And the annex, I consider, if you walk through there and you look at some of the offices, that's pretty A+ too. But I kid you not, that people are working in D- or F conditions every day, and I give the sheriff's staff my total support, and I really, to go into that place every day and work and do what they have to do from top to bottom or wherever they're at in that building, I give them full credit because it is a dismal place. It's cramped. It's like, the space I had at Century, wherever I worked, was 3 times as big as any the sheriff's office, for God's sakes. And I wasn't no big hotshot. I was just a little guy. But to maintain our staff and to provide a decent workspace, I think we're going to eventually have to look at what we have to do, and that's what we're trying to do on the Space and Properties Committee is tour these assets that we have in the county, the courthouse, the jail, and now tomorrow, At 3:30, we're going to review what's over at 10:39. It's important for people that are voting in the future to see what's going on. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't been through the jail, contact the sheriff, and I'm sure he can arrange another tour. You really have to see it to believe it. Thank you.
That's one of the purposes behind these tours. We're going through these buildings, we're looking at the buildings, we're looking at the capital improvement projects that we have set for these buildings. And somewhere along the line, these two are going to have to meet. We're going to have to decide, do we repair, do we rebuild, or what do we do to these buildings? And that's what this whole project of touring all these buildings has been. And we'll continue till we get to the end of the year. We hope to have all the buildings covered. Stan.
When this jail was built, the architect who was selected, the only reason he got to be selected is because there was a figure that was put out by the jail building committee, which was like $3 million. And because the chairman says, well, that's what the Wood County cost was for their jail. However, Wood County did not build a new jail. All they did was add it on to their present jail. So the square footage that's in this jail presently is the same square footage that was in the old Ford garage where we were before we got into this building. So that's why we're out of space, like Don said. So we got to do something. We got to take the tour, please.
That's right. You know, and also read the reports, see what we're talking about. Put it all in your mind, because eventually you're going to have to come to make a vote. What do we do with these buildings? We're going to have to do something. We've kicked this can down the road. And that road is getting to the short end, dead end of the road. Something's got to happen. And so tomorrow we are going to tour the 1039 building, which is behind the annex. And that is basically at 3:30. We'll meet in conference room 1 and 2. And we'll walk over to the building and look at the building, get an idea what's there. What does 1039 have to play in this? That might be where the site we have to build our new building. We don't know. We have to come with all our thoughts and decide how we're going to do this. One's going to have to give for the other. But remember, we have a 10-pound bag and we got it filled to 20 pounds of weight right now at the jail right now. We also have 35 people at Wapaka County. We're getting a break on that right now, but we're in the process of starting to negotiate a new contract, and you can rest assured what we're paying for that contract this year is not going to be the same in the future. So, any more questions? Matt.
Thank you, Don. Thanks for your presentation also. One question, it was voted to pay for the study to study the usability of these buildings or feasibility for that. When is that study going to be complete?
That is ongoing right now, and I think within by November or so we should have an answer on that one.
Thank you.
Now that's for this building.
I understand that was for this building, but I just wondered when that, in the scheme of things.
In the scheme of things, right. We have the one for the jail that was done in 18. We have a dollar figure on that one, but again, that was a $2018, and the way things have gone up in the construction end of it, we can rest assured the 27 million quoted there will be far more than what we see. Somebody out? Al, I can't see behind me, Al.
I just wanted to make a few comments. Don stopped in my office and we were talking about his presentation a little bit, and I mentioned to him that I had an article taped on the wall there from 2009, where the county board supervisors were about to take up discussion about a new construction of $29.5 million advisory referendum. And that was in 2009. We would have had it paid for by now. Had we gone ahead and built, we probably would have got a lot more for bang for our buck back then as well. But nobody likes to talk about a jail. It's nothing that's glamorous, but when people don't behave themselves, they get to go to jail. And it's something that we have to take and we have to do as a county. It's our responsibility. I know that we've been told that we put too many people in jail. That's not the case. I look at what Andrea has mentioned to us in the past, had her look at the numbers with the surrounding counties. We are lower than any of the counties behind us. Wood County is adding on because they have so many people. Marathon County is got so many people. We don't have the same case, but we do get to the point where we are busting at the seams, and we do need to take this issue up. And I had said it when I first sat was appointed as the chair. These issues didn't go away. We have the healthcare center, we have the nursing home. The jail, and the new construction. There's a lot of things that have not gone away, and they're not going to go away if we just decide not to do anything. The inaction has actually cost us a lot of money. So.
Any additional questions? The sheriff's also here if you have a question of the sheriff's department.
I see Joan has got her hand up. Joan?
Yes, I do. I took the tour. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I want to second some of the things that Mike Splinter had to say. Until you go through that building, you cannot believe the working conditions. And I think so many people in the community think of the law enforcement center as strictly the jail. If they could see the conditions under which people who are providing emergency services for our community are working, it's amazing that we have the level of service that we do. It's not just the jail, it's everything that goes into keeping our community safe. And the working conditions there they're awful. I don't know how the sheriff and his staff keep the kind of people that they do and the quality service. So I'd agree with the tours are incredibly enlightening. Thank you.
Mr. Martinson?
Yeah, not to pile on, but I want to just agree with Supervisors Honnold and Splinter. I think that all supervisors should take that tour. A couple months ago, I had the opportunity to work with some of sheriff's staff, the deputies through the CCW course, and they are top notch. And I would agree with Supervisor Honnold. How we keep such top notch people in those conditions is a tribute to the work that Sheriff Lucas and his team do. So that's all I got.
Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, I just want to echo what all the others have said so far, and having not taken the tour, I trust the judgment of the folks who have taken the tour, who come from a variety of different workforce experience, and I think the aspect of, I'm looking at the people who work in that center as public employees, right? And I think public employees should be treated as well as private sector employees. And this is just setting aside the question of how many beds we need and how many people are going to be incarcerated versus not incarcerated. Even if we move toward models of not incarcerating so much, that implies we're going to need a lot more human services, which means things like drug counseling, anger management, all sorts of, very intensive work by public employees trying to rehabilitate people. And you can't do that in conditions that are suboptimal, to echo what Supervisor Splinter said, if you can have optimal working conditions at Sentry, why not have them in the public employee space too? And I think some of this is going to require maybe changing some attitude and values in the community so they understand that it's not just a matter of, oh, my taxes are going up or I'm paying too much of taxes, but what kind of community do we want to be? That's the question. So I'm in favor of I think the $27 million figure, I don't know much about construction, but it sounds plausible and reasonable to me. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Sheriff?
Thanks, and appreciate the kind words.
what Supervisor just said about the $27 million, I would never, ever support that. I'm just telling you. I would never support trying to remodel that building, because the number one concern I have is the safety and security of not only the inmates, but also my staff. If we put a Band-Aid on that, we're not doing anything for safety, security of our inmates, not safety, security of our staff, and we're not addressing any of those issues. All we're doing is putting that Band-Aid for a couple years, and then we're back at it again. So I will tell you right now, I will not support a remodel of that building. It's not feasible, it's not cost effective, and it's not going to take away the linear jail, because that is what we need to take away. Because if we do the pod system, we can utilize the staff more efficiently. They can be safer. They can be sitting there monitoring. Right now we have dead camera angles. We have suicide attempts all the time in the jail. We have fights in the jail where our staff are getting injured because they can't see that they need help. So I'm just telling you right out, if you come across and you're going to vote on this, I will speak highly against it, because I think it's utterly ridiculous that we're even talking about a $27 million remodel. But I'm also going to harp right now and say we need to do something. Every year, this is 7 years now as sheriff, every year we come across this county board, and every year we do a study, every year we spend money, every year we say we're going to do something, and every year we get new board members and they don't have enough information to do it. You are elected to make decisions. You are elected, just like I am, to make decisions. It has to do with going back and do a referendum, do an advisory referendum. This has to do with you being representing of your constituents. You're voted in for it. So this is the time to actually look at this. And when people came through and we had somebody in a wheelchair doing this tour that could not get through, that's pretty disheartening. The other thing too is when you look at our staff that are in closets trying to bring in people from homicide victims to whatever to do interviews, and they can't even have a private conversation. You have to look at this. And the people that haven't done the tour, shame on you. You've had opportunities. I mean, I have offered it. We've had several, and I think it's time that this board needs to take a look at this seriously and say, where's our priorities? Is it the staff? Is it the citizens? What is our priorities? And we need to decide. We can't do this over 2 years, because in 2 years we'll have a different board. So we have to take some action. I'll let Supervisor Gifford go first. Then I believe Supervisor Johnson.
Yeah, just to clarify my remarks, I guess you can color me stupid, because I thought this $27 million figure was going to include these extra spaces, the 10
all that $27 million does is add another linear L link to the jail where our garage is. And then what would happen too during this whole construction, you cannot house people in our jail when they're doing construction because of the hazardous stuff in the walls and everything. So we would have to move everybody out for a 2 to 3 year period, and then bring them back into instead of an 80 bed facility, it would be a 96. I think 16 beds increase. But then we're under the DOC restrictions of the classifications, so that 96 bed goes back down to about 60, because we have to do classifications per linear cell.
All right, and then I concur with your remarks. I'm sorry. I'll withdraw my stupid remarks.
I'm just here to educate, because people don't understand. They think, oh, 27 million maybe compared to a $45 million building is a better deal. But if you look at the safety, security, the staff utilization, everything like that, and you look at the long term of 20, 30 years, if you're going to get 5 years out of $27 million compared to 30 years out of the other, I mean, you got to look at the cost effective. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sheriff Lucas, and thank you, Supervisor Jankowski, for your presentation. So first off, I was the one who led the effort on City Council, despite some pushback from administration, to move the police department from the basement, where they were also in closets and in less than safe situations, to their current location on Michigan Avenue, where they're much happier. They have a lot more room. They have safe and secure work environment, and they don't have to put up with what they had in the basement. In a similar thought process, I completely agree with the sheriff. We need to be looking at a modern design which is what we're doing at the healthcare center. Throwing good money after bad is irresponsible. It's fiscally irresponsible, and it's a terrible public policy, in my opinion. At the healthcare center, we're looking at a similar sort of pod design because that's what's efficient. We are not building for the 1970s. We need to build for the 21st century. And then finally, I remember having a conversation with Judge Flugar. And in that conversation, we covered a lot of different topics. And we covered the cost of a facility that would house people who were in need of jail. But we also talked about making sure that a new facility was really designed as a campus to provide the kind of support to help people, whether it's AODA, whether it's mental health, whether it's the kind of help we need to have people matriculate from incarceration to our community to have productive lives. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, I can support that idea of us spending the kind of money as long as we think of this in a holistic manner. So yes, incarceration is part of the equation, but the part of, incarceration is really about protecting society, obviously, but there's another component, and that's about helping that person who did maybe something wrong, maybe had made bad choices, maybe was a victim of early childhood trauma, working to correct those things so those people can matriculate back into society and help us build a more productive society. So we have to think of this holistically. I support the sheriff's notion that we need a new facility. Otherwise, we're going to be spending the taxpayers' money and it will be for naught. That is what I had to say. And I want to also thank Supervisor Dodge, who has been a champion on this for a very long time. And, I'm glad Supervisor Jankowski has taken her legacy and built on it. We need to make the right choice here. Thank you.
Supervisor Syke.
Thank you. I guess my question is for the sheriff. Would you support a new jail if it were not located downtown?
I'm not even going to get into that discussion, Supervisor, because I am supporting a new building for safety, security, and if it lies downtown or outside.
And I understand that. And the reason I ask is because our previous sheriff, Sheriff Charlowitz, back in the day was also speaking on the pod system. Mm-hmm. And the selling point that he was using on the pod system, besides security of our staff and our inmates, is the ability to grow that system if needed. Now, if we're not going to look at putting this in a place where we can grow this, we're going to end up in the same position as we are now. We had a jail from the 1920s to 1990. 50 years we got out of that jail. We built this jail, and there's a whole smattering that can be gone around of blame and oversight and so on and so on. If we're going to do this, we have to look forward in the future so we don't have the oversights. As soon as that jail was built, within 10 years, we were saying it was out of compliance, that it had already outlived its usefulness, that it was already crowded. That was back in 2002. Yep. Almost 20 years ago. So if we're going to have the conversation, let's please have the conversation. And there is no room downtown to expand on the pod system.
And I'm not going to disagree. We need the forward vision of expansion of it, 1 or 2 pods at least, in regards to the pod system, so that you can say if you build for a 200-bed jail right away, that you can expand to the 400-bed. I'm not disagreeing, and I'm just saying where there's room and it works, I'm in support. I'm not going to lie, it would be very feasible for closer to the interstate for transports and for prison runs and for everything like that.
And wouldn't it also be easier to, if it were out by the interstate, with the way that the interstate and Highway 10 and our county is connected, wouldn't it also be easier for response times if we had a centralized location?
Well, the other debate you have is also for the court system, because if you build the sheriff's office with the jail, you have to have the court system and then the feasibility for people to get to the court. So I'm not into that debate. I'm into the debate of safety, security for staff and for the inmates that are housed there.
And I would agree with you 100% on that debate. Thank you.
Just a short history lesson. The original jail was built across the street in the parking lot where we park, and that was the old building that was built in 18 something. It was an old sandstone building. There were probably 10 to 12 beds there. In 1956, I think it was, we built this building. We then were housed over across right across through these windows. That was the jail. That whole western wing of the second floor was the jail. Actually, as you walked out of the other courtroom here, you walked right into the jail. And that stayed there till 1992. And now we're sitting where we're at since 92.
Supervisor Jankowski. Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question for the sheriff, actually two questions. Number one, when we ship prisoners, no extra services are offered, correct? So they do not get any programming. They just go sit in a cell. There's no educational, no AODA programming, correct?
Correct. When they stay here, they get those services.
They stay here, they do, but if we ship them to
Correct.
Wapaka County, they do not. Okay. That's one thing I wanted to make clear that everybody understood. The other thing, if we were to build this jail today, what's the magic number? I've heard 100 beds, I've heard 200 beds, I've heard 300 beds, I've heard 400 beds. If we were to build a jail today to meet our needs for today in 25 years into the future, what's that magic number? And I realize it's your opinion.
Well, looking at the studies, they said we were going to have 300 inmates at this time. We've plateaued since I become sheriff. We've stayed level. I told Space and Properties that I figured that for the next 10 years to be safe, a 200-bed jail I think would be sufficient. With the ability to expand other pods if need be in later dates. But with classification right now, with our maximum daily population of, I think it was 147, that would give us the classifications and having a medical bed, having day room, because all DOC standards have changed now. So you have to have different things in regards to square footage and things like that. And that jail was built for 79 beds, and it was supposed to be double occupancy, so we would have had almost 160 beds. That's what they were looking at. But once it started, DOC changed the rules, and we were down to 79 beds, and that's where we have serious issues.
Thank you.
From the committee standpoint, a lot of these questions were asked of the sheriff and the staff when we were at the tour. We had a chance to ask these questions and talk about it. That's what you miss by not making those tours. And that's why we're asking, if we present the tour, please try to make it, because you get a firsthand information as to what's going on.
And I have to apologize. I've had prior commitments, couldn't make the tour.
There are some people that can't. I understand
Through
that.
the jail.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know for those of us that couldn't make the tour.
So,
Did anybody else have their hand up? Charlie, did you have? Charlie?
Yes, I.
Use the mic, please.
Questions. I toured the jail a number of years ago when I was on the county board. And I think that was the time when, was that up for a vote? Or at that time and it lost? What happened to it there?
we sat there and we're doing what we've been doing. We've been making do. But we've also, since that time, we now are housing prisoners at Wapaka County. Maybe at that time, we weren't housing that many prisoners out of the county.
No, we were talking jail at that time. And did anybody, the older supervisors, can remember when this was talked about? And the same problems were, by the way, the same problems were mentioned that you have right now.
And they have been discussed, Charlie, they have been discussed over the years. The same problems are there. We settle them down a little bit, and then they come back with a head that really is sticking above everything else here. Every so often that happens. Gene.
One more comment.
Okay.
I think we should do it. We should build it. and build it to the best of our ability that will fill the needs in the future. And that should be one of the main things. Otherwise, this thing's gonna pop up again.
It will be right back at us. Yes. Jean, you had a comment?
Just in response to Charlie's first statement, I do believe we've gone to referendum to the public 3 different times on Justice Center and jail. So we can have all the discussion we want on this board. If we end up going to referendum again, I can tell you what the result will be. The sheriff made a statement that basically he said, we were elected to make the decision to spend the money to build this facility. If we don't do our job, you'll be here in 10 years having the same discussion again. So you're going to have to bite the bullet and make a decision. And you're going to have to answer to the public for it, but be prepared.
We're trying to get all these reports and all this information for you so that you understand that if you do this, something else is going to be pushed back a year or two or whatever. We're going to have to make some decisions. Probably within the next 6 months, those decisions are going to have to start taking place. Scott.
Thank you. So I've never been accused of being the sharpest tool in a drawer. So I'm just going to ask. We've been talking about this, or the board's been talking about it, the county, the community has been talking about it for almost 20 years. What have we done on the financial side to get ready for this? Because I run a small business, and there's things that I started talking about 20 years ago that I wanted.
No.
And I saved. I did my financials. I saved to get the things that I needed and wanted. What have we been doing on the financial side for the last 20 years to where we're not going to referendum to ask for $100 million or to raise the taxes? What have we done fiscally responsible for this problem?
Jennifer, are you able to answer some of that? Jennifer Josie?
Sure, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
So many years ago, when we started talking about building projects, we had positioned our debt service in a way that we could accommodate adding larger debt service to our debt service budget. We have funds that are set to be transferred to the county that are repayments from the business park that have been established and waiting for a larger scale project so that we can deal with the kind of increases and decreases that will kind of destabilize the tax levy from year to year. We have been positioning the capital improvement fund with additional dollars to be able to handle a larger scale project. We have some funds in capital improvement project already ready to deal with some of the expenses related to a larger facility project. We have taken resolutions to this board multiple times to deal with reimbursement resolutions, to incorporate some of the studies and concept designs that we've had previously. We would probably have to do that again because they've become somewhat outdated. But all the positioning that we've done within finance and finance committee with some of the decisions that we've made regarding the debt service fund and capital projects has been with a large scale project in mind. Now, to add a project of this size, it does impact the tax rate. It will have an impact on taxes. I can't tell you that it won't just because of its size. But there have been things that we've done in terms of slowly increasing the debt service tax levy to be able to accommodate a larger project. We have been borrowing very moderate amounts with very short-term paybacks in a way to get ourselves structured so that when we do add a larger project that we're capable of handling it. I don't know if that's enough of an answer or if you want more information. I guess I didn't come prepared to have this conversation this evening, so.
And I guess, and I want to just, I know it's great that we're having this discussion, but we're really kind of getting in the weeds on some of this stuff and into some of the details. And I'm very encouraged by the discussion that we're having so far tonight. But some of those other things I think we need to save for a different time to get into some more of the detail of it. We've got other things to get to as well, but I'm very pleased with the discussion that we had and the input and the conversation. So if there's any more comments or questions,
yeah, the only thing that I wanted to add that I didn't say, and just to make clear, because people get it confused when we start talking about the levy. Debt service is outside the levy limit. It's not something that requires a referendum. It's not something that has to be dealt with on the levy limit. It's completely outside of it. And we handle it differently. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Any other supervisors that have a comment? Mr. Splinter?
Just real quick. Approaching the financing of the jail or the courthouse or whatever in the past with a referendum doesn't work. And we all, each one of us here represent probably 2,800 to 3,000 people. And we're here to look at the details and take the tours and know what the status is of everything is before we recommend something. For this to go through, and I'm getting a gist that everybody's getting to the point where at least the jail, if I had to grade everything, I'd grade the jail an F. I'd grade the courthouse maybe a C, C plus with room for improvement, but the jail is really it's a crappy place to work. But it's going to take 75% of this board, this sitting one right now, to move forward without a referendum. Referendums are good on certain issues, but when they're complex, the taxpayer just goes yes or no, and they don't look at the complexity. We're elected to look at the complexities of everything and make the best call for our county after looking at all these details. And I would highly recommend, if you don't take the tours, at least come to our space and properties meetings and sit in the back and listen and get an input. And we want your input too. It's not just us telling you guys, but we're trying to educate everybody at the same level so that it comes to the point of we got to make a decision. We can make an informed decision. Thank you.
The Wednesday after every board meeting, we have a tour scheduled. So if you want to plan the Wednesday after the board meeting at 3:30, we will announce which building we're going to. And we'll try to get all this information to you so you understand and know where we're at.
DA Malevsky, I'll allow you to make a comment.
I guess I just comment, I've been around for these discussions for a long time, but you got to build a new jail. It's not if you have to build it. I'm not going to tell you how big it's going to have to be. You can look at what the judges are sentencing, how many people are in jail, what we did in COVID. But, the sheriff will give his input, your committees, how big it is. Wood County selected their option, very large. But what you have right now is a ticking time bomb for the staff that work there. Just look at what happened in Marathon County, the very large lawsuit against the county for that injury for that correction officer. She almost lost her life because of a faulty jail. Then you have two juveniles sexually assaulted in our detention center because we placed an adult offender in that section because we're not complying with the statute, because we can't put a 17-year-old charged as they are as an adult into the adult section because of the federal PREA law, Prison Rape Elimination Act. because then the jail has to clear out an entire section, and we don't want the one person by themselves there either for mental health issues. So you need to act now, and I don't know why we're still debating this. And, you know, as someone that diverts 200 cases out of the system, you know, it's the DA's office that determines how big the jail is, frankly, and the judges on their sentences, because we decide how many cases are in the criminal justice system. No one else does that. So ultimately, you can see where we're going, and as we've had some discussions on who should be in jail and all that, those are sort of ancillary. The point is, you need a new facility. And if you have not gone in there, think about those people working 8, 9, 10 hours a day in darkness. Think about that. Think about your health insurance. Think about all the things that we worry about on liability issues, but then also think about treatment and for the offenders. We want them to come out of that facility better and not reoffend. But if they're in there in just a terrible place, which it is a terrible place, you know? And if you've done some bad stuff, maybe some people think that's okay, but that's not really the focus of people sitting on cash, for example, who are not guilty. They're pending trial. They're innocent, yet their experience relating to the person who's serving a sentence is the same in a facility that needs some help. So at the end of the day, we know that the facility was let to the lowest bidder, but it was not the responsible bidder. And we built a facility that we got what we paid for, $2 million to $3 million, and they didn't even know that you couldn't put the plumbing accessible to the prisoners, so they had to cut the jail in half. So please build this thing. And as far as supervisors, I'm sorry. Soik. I was saying Pataki in my head. We have money. The board just has to direct it to that facility, you know, and get her done. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this topic is something that we'll continue to move forward with, and it may be something where we ask the DA or the judges to come in to, or Andrea as well, and have just a discussion where we can just ask some of the questions and any questions that come up or you think of, because this is something that needs to our attention and needs to be looked at. It's been way too long. So, public notice: members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their requests at this time, with such comments subject to reasonable control of county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. Please state your name, sir.
David Iden.
David Iden. Got it.
Item 12.
Item 12. Thank you. Ma'am.
Elaine Kozlowski, item 12.
Got it. Elaine. Yep. Anyone else?
Keith Kudrowski, item 12.
Keith Kudrowski, item 12. Anyone else? Okay. What is that? Discussion only. This is an item I had asked to have put on. Discussion only regarding further resolutions that have no impact or take no action. We seem to be getting resolutions that come forward that go nowhere. Some people have referred to them as feel-good resolutions. I use the term no action. If we remember back when Mr. Gifford brought an action forward, it was told to him that his action would just be filed. That's all that would happen to it. It wasn't asked if he would like to have it sent on to our elected representatives at Madison, Wisconsin Counties Association, and so on. And he said, yes, that's a good idea. That's what we want to do. Some of these other ones that we get, and I'm going to pick on the next one, and it's June Dairy Month. Resolution recognizing June as a dairy month for Portage County. June Dairy Month is the whole state of Wisconsin for the month of June. The fact that it would be in front of the board in July. We had one from the Diversity Committee that would have had a item that was a month later. Again, it's timing. of it was important. That one, they pulled off the agenda before going in a different direction with it. The June Dairy Month one, because it was going to be improved in July, I did not put it on the last county board agenda because I wanted it on executive ops, because I wanted those folks' input, and I wanted to be able to understand or to see if others were thinking the same thing, that we're getting resolutions that have no action, that are out there to, and they consume a lot of time, both for the staff, and we can spend quite a bit of time on the floor on things that people say that don't need to be. A lot of what came out of executive ops was that these things can be covered under correspondence and be included in the packets, because these resolutions, when we create a resolution and it goes nowhere, it goes on the record, but it doesn't get sent anywhere. It sits in it goes into a drawer. So I don't know if everybody understands or what happens with these resolutions or how they move forward. But I ask that in the future, these resolutions that you take action on, if you vote no, nothing changes. If you vote yes, nothing changes. It's probably one that could be covered under a correspondence and not a resolution. So I wanted to make sure that I just had that conversation with you folks, and any other thoughts that anybody else had. Again, as I had said before, I brought it to executive ops because I wanted others' input and opinions, and that's what I'm looking for here as well. Anybody's thoughts or opinions. So, okay. Thank you. Resolutions and ordinances. Number 8, resolution recognizing June as Dairy Month in Portage County. And again, I just want to make sure everybody knows I love milk and cheese. So I'm not against June Dairy Month. So,
Mr. Chair, I would ask that we postpone this to the May of 2022 meeting as a correspondence.
I have a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Supervisor Matt Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. If there's, are we ready to take a?
Let's just do a voice vote on that.
So if everybody's fine with a voice call on the postponement, any other discussion? I have a motion.
I
and
do
a
have
second.
just a titch of discussion.
What's that?
I do have just a
Okay,
bit of
I will allow
discussion on it.
a little bit of discussion.
The one thing, the reason it was brought in July is because this was the only thing on the May Ag and Extension meeting and the June Ag and Extension meeting, and we did not have those meetings because we felt for one agenda item, it wasn't worth paying
Thank you.
the supervisors and saving the county and staff money.
Thank
So
you.
that's why it wasn't brought till July, when there was more things to be put on the agenda, and it was put on with it. So I apologize for that.
I appreciate the saving of the money, so thank you.
But it's not going for more chair pay. So
Yeah. Supervisor Syke,
Thank you. When it comes back in May, as a correspondent, can we give it some direction?
we can take it up in May. Yes, I'm fine with that. We can talk about it in May. We have a motion and a second. Did you say to postpone till May?
till May of 2022.
Okay. All those in favor of postponing until May of 2022, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 9, Town of Almond Comprehensive Plan amending the Portage County zoning ordinance map amendment. Ackerman, sorry. Ackerman property.
Resolution number 128, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Planning and Zoning Committee. This resolution approves a comp plan amendment and zoning ordinance map amendment for the Ackerman property.
Motion by Supervisor Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Splinter. Discussion. Supervisor Medine.
I do have a complimentary statement to make. At the last meeting, we didn't have any of the full set of information, and I appreciate Chairman Rakowski putting a full set of information on the agenda and continuing to do that as we have in the past. Thank you very much.
There's plenty of information in these two. I see that. So, are we going to try and vote on this one?
We don't have civic clerk anymore. He had to go. So,
Okay.
so we can start it and try. All right. I'm going to, do you want me to start the vote?
My computer went to sleep. My computer went to sleep after an hour.
So did we.
Everybody else?
Everybody else probably did as well.
Okay, I'm back on. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor vote yes, and opposed vote no.
If it doesn't pop up on your screen, let us know so Jean can come. It's not popping up. Those of you at home, is it coming up for you? Half and half?
Kayla.
Yeah, it's coming up for us.
Okay.
Yours did, I saw. Yeah, mine did.
And this is the patience part I ask everybody.
My favorite IT person.
Okay, so it comes.
Let's try to go back. Let's see where we're at when we start here.
Yeah, it's not coming up for a couple people at home too.
I joined too.
It just cleared out the vote.
Okay, yeah, so we'll just do it. We'll just.
No, I can't change.
It just.
It just cleared out the vote.
So I'm gonna.
Just do voice vote.
So we're.
Hey,
What's her name?
Jean,
Jean.
the civic clerk just cleared out the vote again. It all disappeared.
So we're having difficulties. The person that was on from civic clerk is.
He had to leave, so he's not on anymore to see
He's
that.
not on. So we're gonna go back to old school here for the rest of the night so that we can continue.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a suggestion,
Go ahead.
maybe next meeting, let's flip the agenda and have the action items first. That way the civic clerk person doesn't have to time out on us through presentations and questions. I understand, but I don't think anybody in the body would have a problem with that. Maybe a little consensus right now. We could say, hey, let's.
I don't know if we have any presentations for the next one, but we'll be more. I'm glad we had all the discussion we had tonight, so that wasn't anticipated. But
Well, and if I may,
yep.
Jean and I had sat down right after the last county board meeting to run through some tests so we could see if there was issues that we could recreate, and we spoke with Austin on the phone and invited him to come to this live county board meeting and see what the issues were during the meeting, because I had mentioned that we had not been able to successfully vote on pretty much any item since we've implemented the system. And so he said he would come, and during the meeting, like while this discussion was happening tonight, he sent me an email that said, oh, I didn't realize this was going to be a live meeting. I can't really help you during your live meeting. So, I mean, we lost him, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be helpful. So it might have to be some type of special training. I'm not really sure at this point, but.
Supervisor Dubek.
Are we paying money for this system? And can we get some money back? Because this has not worked at all the entire time we've had this bad boy.
And again, I ask for your patience on anything that's new and new technology and new hiccups, and we've done what we can. We have someone from IT at our last meeting. We have someone from IT at this meeting. We're going to continue to try and work our way through it. These programs and the rest of them are not cheap. But at the same time, we're trying to have something set up and go in a direction here. So Supervisor Splinter, short, please.
Well, I appreciate the IT progress in this day and age, but until they get figured out in a virtual setting, the screen we had before, we could at least see who was voting for what, and
No.
with this, I don't know who's voting what,
Can I just speak to
Go ahead.
that? So this system does allow for that, but because we have people attending at home and we have to decide between seeing everybody at home or seeing that's what we have decided is to show the video. So that's kind of where we're at. And I guess I just want to apologize because this was sort of my baby and I was super excited to bring the 21st century to county board. And so far it has been unsuccessful and it's been very
maybe
frustrating. So
maybe
I'm
it's
sorry.
one more reason we should have everybody from home
Yep.
attend in person.
The other problem is with this system that we only can test it when we are live. That's the problem. So we have to do it in this setting. This is where we use it. So this is where we have to try and do it. So, all right. So we're gonna just we got a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
All those in favor with aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 10, Town of Carson Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Portage County Zoning Ordinance Map Amendment.
Resolution number 129, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Planning and Zoning Committee. This resolution approves a comp plan amendment and zoning ordinance map amendment.
Motion by Rakowski, seconded by Medine. Discussion. No discussion. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye.
I had a discussion point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it too late?
No, go ahead. Quickly, please.
So this is just really a comment on section 5.8 on the cultural resources. So it's got the title of cultural resources. It talks a bit about cultural resources. And then it doesn't list beyond 2 historic sites any of the cultural resources, either in Portage County or the town of Carson. So I did a quick look online. Portage County has recorded with the state of Wisconsin 504 archaeological sites. 118 of those are in the town of Carson. So I think it might be useful to re-look at this at some point. I know this is sort of new territory for the county or the town to look at. I applaud their efforts, but to me it looks like something got slightly missed here, and I'm not in opposition to this resolution at all. It just looks like this would be a good time to bring a heads up that there actually are sites we should be looking at.
So the chair of the committee is here, and we can probably make sure staff or someone checks with the town of Carson to make sure they're aware of it. Next time they make amendments or are adjusting their maps, they could include it. So at least we can get this part here done there, these amendments, and get it on the next one, or if they have anything in between there. So, okay. Thank you. So we took a vote on that. We had a motion and a second. We took a vote. Everybody voted yes. Anyone opposing? No opposition. Motion carries. Number 11, authorizing a contract for solid waste department relating to processing of member municipalities' recyclables and the operations of the Portage County material recovery facilities.
Resolution number 130, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Solid Waste Management Board and Finance Committee. This resolution approves a contract with John's Recycling for a 15-year contract to operate the Portage County material recovery facility.
Motion by Supervisor Moresi, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion. No discussion. All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed?
I'll be abstaining, Mr. Chair.
I was just gonna call on you.
Thank you for your kind consideration.
So we got a motion, a second. Did we take a vote? Okay. Okay. Number 12. Authorization of exempt to Portage County Ordinance 3.11.5.2 Procurement Procedure Limited Term Employment LTE Health and Human Services Contract tracers for additional hours. And we have some folks from the public who would like to speak.
We need a motion first.
I'll take a motion, put it on the floor. Motion by Dodge, seconded by Gifford. Who was first here? Dave Iden.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I guess my understanding is this would be in reference to a COVID response. Also, I would urge supervisors to consider what was undertaken the past year and the division that was created. It is my feeling CDC guidance is suspect and cannot supersede the First Amendment right to assemble and be forced to shelter in place or heavy-handed control to save us from ourselves. So I would urge everybody to consider that. That brings me to the question of the authorization of exception and what would said employee be involved in regards to contact tracing? What type of, I guess, position is this to be created and what would be their duties and responsibilities? Thank you for the ability to speak.
Kudrowski? Elaine?
Kozlowski.
Sorry.
Ian Kozlowski, 545 Franklin Street. I don't think we ought to be wasting county resources on contact tracing. We need to move forward and not repeat 2020. I've got a fact for Supervisor Moresi, 99.9% survival rating. This has got to end. No one needs contact tracing. If this continues, I mean, something he mentioned is, you know, if you're an employee and your job, I mean, you miss out on work because, oh, you may have been exposed, maybe not. Then you have to spend 2 weeks at home not working. What if you have a job that you can't work at home from? Then who's paying your salary? Is it unpaid? Is it forced PTO? Well, you got to think about that when you have children and a mortgage. If you're forced to stay home for 2 weeks, how are you going to pay your bills? I don't want to piss away my PTO on being forced to stay home when I have a job that I can't work from home for. You know what I mean? So you have to think about it in terms of regular, everyday people. Contact tracing does nothing. It's just a waste of time and efforts and resources. Thank you.
Is it Keith Kurdowski? Yes, sir. There we go. I got one of them right.
Keith Kudrowski, thank you for letting me speak. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the CDC has blown this totally out of proportion. You can look at real deaths from COVID versus with. The numbers minuscule. It's dangerous. It's a fluke. Contact tracing, just a waste of money. Chasing people who've seen me, we'd all be, because I'm here, we all get contact tracing today. Do y'all go to take tests if I test positive? I guess you should. Doesn't make any sense. We're going to really waste county money. We need a lot of stuff, not that. And, you know, wear your masks. Get these people back in the room, too. Being on TV, got to end. So, please consider no. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisors Astro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could we have Director Schabilski respond to that, or is this not the appropriate time and place? I'd like to see it.
Ray.
And also, could the fiscal note be read out loud? I'd be happy to read it if you want.
Ray, if you would, please. You can do it from back there or up here, either one, Ray. Thank you.
I'll switch views, how's that? So the resolution before you tonight is here because of the matter of fact that, you know, per county ordinance, you can only approve up to X number of hours for LTE. And then when you get to that full, when you get to the 2,088 hours, you have to either hire the person permanently, or in this case, because this is very temporary work, we're asking for the exception to that ordinance. The individuals here don't think we should contact trace. I'm going to respectfully disagree. I think we should contact trace. Contact tracers, what they do is when we are identified of a positive case, we'll reach out to find out who those close contacts were per definition, that it has to be for more than 15 minutes for greater than 6 feet. Now, all of this has changed since the start. This has changed because of vaccinations, which is obviously, from our point of view, the best thing we can do to stop this pandemic. But if you're vaccinated, it's going to change whether you're going to be in isolation or in quarantine, excuse me. You know, so what we do is we get those names, we reach out, we want them people to know that they have potentially been exposed. Whether or not people stay in quarantine, we're not at your door every day. We encourage you to do it if we know that you're a contact. 99.9% of the people recover. I'm glad. I'm also very heartbroken that 73 Portage County residents have passed away. We will do our job, and this is part of doing our job. This is grant funds that we've gotten from the state, and I realize that's taxpayer money too. But it's what we're there to do. We have contact traced other illnesses forever. Whether it's been pertussis, whether it's been anything else, we've done that. And we'll continue to do this because that's what we're there to do. Can I answer any other questions for you?
Supervisor Syke.
How many LTE contact tracers do you have on staff now?
Right now we have 10.
10. How many full-time or regular Portage County employees do you have staffing doing contact tracing?
Well, I have 10 LTE doing contact tracing, and I have some of my nurses that will do contact tracing, but mostly it's my LTEs. My nurses have other jobs as well.
Okay, so you made the comment that you've done contact tracing in the past for other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to assume because we know what happens. So when you've done contact tracing in the past for other things, do you bring on LTEs or do you use Portage County staff?
We use Portage County staff.
But in this case, we're not actively doing so. We are using the LTEs.
Because of the volume of work, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, I'd like to speak as a member of Health and Human Services Committee. I'm looking at the COVIDUSA.net right now. United States has logged in 622,980 deaths from COVID-19. I think in February 2020, nobody imagined that we were going to be going into month 20 at this time, right? The reason we have a public health department is we live in a society, not a random collection of individuals inhabiting a common border. Well, society has to be governed, has to be able to govern itself. You know, my wife looks, every night she looks at the statistics because she has immune compromise, okay? Well, about 2 months ago, Portage County had 7,000 cases, right? We're now up to 7,700. We're closing in on Wood County, which has been considered one of the worst for a small county. So I don't know why there's been such a well-organized movement to prevent the public health department from protecting the public health. But, you know, I just think people need to reevaluate their values and belief system because You don't have to worry about being excessively governed in this country. We've become almost completely ungovernable as far as COVID goes. Thank you.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor with aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, authorizing a budget adjustment for acceptance of the Wisconsin Department of Children and Family Foster Parents Grant.
Resolution number 132, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Health and Human Services Board and Finance Committee. This resolution authorizes a budget adjustment and approves the acceptance of the foster parent grant. This resolution requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Motion by Supervisor Dubek, seconded by Supervisor Medine. Discussion. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 14, authorizing an agreement for funding fiber cable installation to complete the county's fiber optic network loop.
Resolution number 133, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Finance Committee. This resolution authorizes the completion of the fiber optic project.
I'll take a motion by Dodge, seconded by Rakowski. Discussion. No discussion. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 15, adoption of the 2022-2027 Portage County Capital Improvement Plan.
Resolution number 134, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Finance Committee. This resolution adopts the 2020-2027 Capital Improvement Plan. And just as an FYI, there was an additional page included in this resolution by mistake. It was the one entitled Enterprise Capital Projects and Alternative Projects for Building Projects. That should not have been included, so I apologize.
Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Gussel. Discussion. Supervisor Matt Chakowski.
I realize it's on the page that was not supposed to be included. But I have to question, and maybe I realize it's alternative projects for building projects. Is that if we decide to go forward with something? Because I would have to question an annex parking lot replacement for $190,000 if at some point in the future we're thinking about building. That was the only thing I had written notes on here. Everything else looked kosher. And I realize now that that wasn't supposed to be included, but now that it wasn't supposed to be included, it's piqued my interest.
Whether we're acting on it or not.
So I know we're not acting on it because it's not supposed to be included, but I wonder why it's even in a plan. I
Jenny?
realize for 22.
Jenny?
Yes, so that page that was included in error was representative of projects that we would need to move forward with if the larger facility projects didn't keep moving forward. If we're not intending to do a larger facility project, those projects are due to be completed and would need to move forward. So we were trying to show the Finance Committee what was kind of in queue, ready to go, that needed to be done. Does that make sense?
Sense.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 16, ratification of the changes made to the 2020-2021 collective bargaining agreement between Portage County Deputies, Sheriff's Association, WPPA, and Portage County.
Resolution number 135, 2020, 2022, submitted by the Human Resources Committee. This resolution approves and ratifies changes to the collective bargaining agreement for 2020-2021 with Deputy Sheriff's Association.
Motion by Supervisor Matt Chakowski, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion.
I know at the committee level there's some question of a possible amendment. needed on this? Was it decided if that
That was taken care of.
was taken care of through
Yeah.
the distribution?
Laura, do you,
Laura,
Okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't forgotten.
Yeah, we decided that it was, I talked with Corporation, Ray, and we decided by sending it out within the 24-hour period as amended and posting it, that was taken care of that way.
Thank you very much.
so. We have a motion and a second, and it's the last thing up, so all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Take a motion to adjourn.
I have a quick announcement.
Go ahead.
If
Supervisor Matt Jakowski.
Okay. Wisconsin's Counties Association, Wisconsin Towns Association, cooperation with the Professional Dairy Producers of Wisconsin, are hosting an agricultural community engagement event. It's August 25th. The closest one to us is August 25th. It's from 6 p.m. to 8:30 at the Fisher Clark Dairy Farm in Hatley, Wisconsin. I do not have an address. If you just search Wisconsin Counties Association, PDPW, you can find the address on there. One nice thing about this is it's not only a type to do a little farm tour and see what agriculture is doing, but there's lots of representatives from the Wisconsin Towns Association there, so you can hear what's going on the town front. There's representatives from the Wisconsin Counties Association there. There's local legislators. There's federal legislators. So if you have something you need to talk to a local legislator about, you want to bend their ear, a federal legislator you want to bend their ear, it's a great time to do it. They're there to listen. You have them for the whole night. It's a great experience. Plus, they feed you ice cream at the end. So, again, it's August 25th, 6 p.m. to 8:30. The farm tour starts at 6. And it's at the Fisher Clark Dairy Farm in Hatley, Wisconsin, just north of us.
I have 2 of those flyers on my desk, so if nothing else, I'll see if I can get staff to scan it in with the other ones and then send it out to the rest of the county board. So it does have an address on it, but I attended the one that was at the Feltz, I think, a few years ago. Last year. It's a very good, very interesting event. So I'll take a motion. Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Dodge. All those in favor of aye? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.